Now, he was away last week, and I hope you noticed that I was also away last week. I wonder if anybody went, oh, was he? That's quite a bad sign if that is the case, that you didn't even notice, because either Simon, who was covering, sounds very similar to me, or you don't tune in enough to realise that I was even away. But I was away, and you can see the stilts, me walking on stilts, if you head over to our Facebook page. You know, you may be a clever man, you may have a PhD, but I bet you can't walk on stilts, can you, Chris?
No, I can't. And I have tried.
Well,
my balance is hopeless.
do you know the only thing that I can't do which involves balance is a skateboard?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I can't do that either.
You know, I don't know why it is, but I can ice skate, I can rollerblade, roller skate, I can do pogo sticks, which you will see the video of that later on this week, by the way. I can do more or less anything that involves stuff like that, but I cannot do a skateboard.
What about surfboard? Can you get a surfboard?
I can surfboard. I can also do wakeboarding, which is the sort of mono board that you do. I can do that. I've not done water skiing in a long time, actually, but all those things I can do apart from a skateboard. You put me on a skateboard and I'd be absolutely useless. However, my brother can do that, but he can't do any other thing. What's gone on there, I wonder?
I don't know, but you're nearly there. I mean, you've covered most of the bases. You're practically a James Bond stunt double.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, if I had a fine head of hair, I think I could be the next James Bond, or maybe a James Bond villain even. Now, it is about time that we did this. Because every week we are joined by Dr. Chris.
Hey.
We found out a few weeks ago that he's not a medical doctor, and he actually does not put on any of his official documentation the fact that he is a doctor, in case he's on a plane someday and they say, is there a doctor on board?
Yeah, likewise, if anybody needs a skateboarder. There are a lot of things you can't do.
To be fair, the chances of a person needing a doctor compared to a skateboarder are very, very slim. I mean, unless you're maybe wanting somebody to fashion out some sort of skateboarding fashion, then you may want that.
I've never been first port of call for anything to do with fashion, so yeah.
But he would be the first point of call, which is why we've got him here now. If you need to delve into the history of life,
and
yes,
Bible.
yes, and anything to do with that. So imagine if you're in an absolute quandary. You've got a biblical question. Who do you call? You call Chris.
Hey, now there's a new theme coming along.
It is. Who are you going to call? Chris Sinkingson. I'll get the jingle people on that.
We'll work on it.
If there's something strange in your neighbourhood, who are you going to call? Chris Sinkingson.
Look, stop it. That's for the future.
Right. So, Chris, for those who will be watching this back later, and we always have to say that, actually, because you'll be hearing this on your radio, and hopefully I can describe what Chris is about to hold up to the camera to the point where you can guess correctly what this artifact is. So, Chris, what have you got for us?
Yeah, Gareth, only you and me could have come up with a radio slot that involves visual identification.
Well, we will do it at some point on Facebook Live. I mean, I could do it on Facebook Live now, but I feel it's a bit too far in there at the moment for this week.
I like hearing your descriptions, to be honest with you. I mean, this is in a box frame. This is a collection of some.
Okay.
But they're obviously found on archaeological digs. Thousands of these are found. These are particularly significant ones. I'll tell you about that later, but thousands are found. And, well, I mean, what do you think? How would you describe them?
So, it looks like, do you know, the clay model figure, Morph, it looks like what he started off as. It looks like somebody's... So, if you were to get some modeling clay, put it on a table and press it with your thumb, that's the sort of shape that you'd get. So it's not quite a full circle, but these are clearly some sort of pots. They're made of some sort of clay.
Yeah.
And up above, if you move it down ever so slightly, I can read the text.
No.
Am I allowed to read them? No.
No,
Okay, fine.
Well, all right, you can, but that'll probably.
I thought that was okay then. So I won't read out the text, but what we've got here is clearly some sort of coinage, I think. Is that right? A coinage? Some sort of.
It's a great description. I mean, they look like old coins, maybe, but you're quite right. It's clay. It is what Morph would have looked like if he'd been flattened.
Okay, right. And they've got, if you bring it a bit closer, Chris, we can see, well, I can see patterns on them. So there's some sort of markings on there and there's some sort of language. So yes. I'm going to go with a sort of currency or something that people would have.
Yeah, not bad.
No, currency is what I'll go for. If you can do better than me, then you can get in touch. I know it's rather vague, but come on, help me out on this one. The number is 0161 511 9555. 0161 511 9555. And the full description on the way next. I think actually I'm to blame for some of these rather strange guesses coming through. And I've just been informed that they're actually not coins at all. So for my description of saying, I think it's some sort of currency, it is my fault that we've had messages coming through like this. Now, I can't make head nor tail of this. I think, Gareth, it is coins which would usually be found in the Turkey area from a time of King Aliats, and it was around the 560 BCE. Now, what does BCE even mean, Chris? Because we've got the one, so BC, and we've got AC. What does BCE mean? Sorry, AD.
ACDC.
ACDC, yeah. Who, funnily enough, they'll be in the live lounge later on tonight. So BC, what does BCE mean?
Well, BC obviously means before Christ, so that's the Christian way of doing the dating. In the last kind of 20 years in scholarship, they don't like the fact that it refers to the coming of Christ.
Oh,
so they've created a new dating system, which is CE, means the common era. That's what we used to call AD.
Cheeky.
BCE is before the common era, which we call BC. The thing is, right, it removes Christ from the dating system to have BCE and CE, but the date is exactly the same. It's still all measured from the birthday of Jesus Christ. You can try and remove his name, but you can't remove his significance.
I love the fact it's a bit like now, isn't it? How people say festive celebrations rather than Christmas. Yes, the winter holiday season. Right. And now how they try the very, very best, chocolate manufacturers, to take away Easter from it, and they say chocolate egg season, or it's a chocolate egg Sunday and that kind of stuff. Well, we'll be having none of that on this show, so we will not refer to that again, this BCE rubbish.
But to be fair to the caller there, no, I mean, that in standard scholarship, that's normal now to say BCE, so people don't even think that. In standard scholarship, they'll say BCE or CE. So no, I mean, the contributor there, they're using the standard way of doing it. So, credit to them for that.
And a message in from Lynn, it said, are they, now is this, it's spelt RUNES?
Runes.
What are runes?
Well, that's like this sort of type of script that the Vikings used and the settlers, the runes. So they're like straight lines. That's more like the writing. That's the script that people use to communicate with. And that actual suggestion is not a bad suggestion. That written, the writing, because you referred to writing, could be runes. They're not, as it happens, because those are too late. This is much earlier than that. But it's not a bad suggestion.
And this last one here, I love the sound of this. Is it the clay money of Japan?
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. No, it isn't. But I mean, I can see it.
The thing is that surely they would have realised that clay's not the best thing to make money with because it would break so easy. Clay's very, very soft, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing with money originally the thing itself was valuable. You know, like a little bit of gold becomes a gold coin. And, you know, when you're exchanging it, it's not just the fact that a bank guarantees it. It actually is a little bit of gold or a little bit of silver or a little bit of bronze. So, you know, money originally came from a precious material that was valuable in itself. And clay is not worth much.
Well, Chris, we are sat on the edge of our breakfast couches.
Yes.
Not that there's a difference between a lunchtime couch and a breakfast couch, but let's find out what these little bits of circular clay actually are.
Right. Well, you know, thousands of these appear, but like one of the listeners said, they are clay. It is clay. And clay generally doesn't survive very well, so it crumbles to dust. So, you know, actually you said that, Gareth, didn't you? So clay tends to crumble to dust, doesn't survive very long. There must have been millions of these in the ancient world, but thousands have managed to survive, often because if a building got burnt down, clay bakes really hard. So what would have crumbled and disappeared to history has managed to survive, often because a building got caught up in a fire and that would have preserved these little clay stamps, which is what they are. Now, these are called bula. And bula is a word that describes these stamps which were personal signatures. Every single one of these has someone's personal name on them, stamped into clay to make a seal. So like for a document or for maybe on a jar or pottery, you could stamp your personal name to say it belongs to you. And so every one of these is an example of a personal name that we find in the Bible, because we've got thousands of these now that have emerged around Israel. And some of these are names that we don't know who they were. They're just gone to history, lost to history. But some of them we do know, and we actually have the personal stamps of different people. There's been some remarkable ones found, and they'll have little symbols on them, but then a little bit of writing, as you pointed out, because you can see the writing, Gareth. And the writing will be a personal name, maybe the name of the father as well, maybe a place name could be included, or a job title, sometimes a job title. And all that kind of information can be stamped on a seal so we know who it belonged to. Now, for the Bible, this is where it gets really exciting, because we've now got a number of different seals here at 8 that belong to people we read about in the Bible. King Hezekiah, for example, got a number of his personal stamps. And one was found just about 7 or 8 years ago now. One was found bearing the name of Isaiah the prophet, which is pretty stunning. Isaiah the prophet's personal stamp. And, you know, when you stamp these, you have a little kind of precious stone with the original inscription on. They appear sometimes in archaeological digs, but they're very rare. But when you stamp it into the clay that's left behind not only gets that inscription with the name, but once in a while, you get a little bit of the thumbprint as well. Now, I find that spine tingling, because not only have you got names from nearly 3,000 years ago stamped in clay, but sometimes you get a little bit of the thumbprint as well. In other words, we don't just know these people existed that we read about in the Bible. It's not just that we know they existed because of this direct connection. We've even got thumbprints. We can even see the thumbprint of men and women from Bible times. So these continue to appear on archaeological sites. They turn up. I'm going to be out on a site, by the way, in July, Gareth. Maybe we'll talk about that later on. And I'll tell you about what we're going to be digging. And we keep sharp eyes out on these sites, because a little bit of clay, if you're not careful, if you're digging with a trowel, you turn it to dust, it shatters and it's gone. And what could have been the discovery of your lifetime just becomes another little bit of dirt that ends up being discarded. So you've got to be very careful, keep a sharp eye out when you're excavating in one of these sites.
Do you know, I love that whole thumbprint thing, that there is somebody's, and every thumbprint is unique. So the fact that there will be these things that you've just described with such a personal thing, it's a bit like, now, you're probably used to hearing these kind of stories. So to you, it may not mean very much. But I remember watching Dan Snow do this incredible documentary about Tutankhamun. And they let him go into this special vault almost. And they opened it up and there was a drawer of his makeup there.
Wow.
And it blew me away, this, because it was the makeup palette. And we've all seen, you know, the sort of blue underneath the eyes and stuff. And that was the actual makeup palette of Tutankhamun, where it would have had, presumably, would they have had brushes then, Chris, or would it have been his thumbs going on it and then going on his face?
Well, perhaps thumb as well to apply it, but they would have had brushes as well. Yeah, that's right. I mean, those kind of connections directly to be able to touch the things that these people of ancient history touched. It's a great connection.
I find that amazing. Now, I just want to put this out there that if you discover, well, not personally in your garden, but if you're flicking through any of these stories about artifacts and you want me and Chris to cover any of them, then do send them over, because we've got, I'm going to put it out there, one of the country's leading scholars when it comes to this kind of stuff. How'd you like that, Chris? And we've got him on every Monday to talk us through this. And isn't it interesting? I mean, genuinely, there's no other radio station doing this kind of stuff. So if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, any artifacts in particular, maybe you've stumbled upon some news stories, and maybe it's shaken you a little bit, because the media loves to portray that actually history has proven that the Bible isn't true. History has proven that God didn't send down Jesus and all this. Well, we know that's not true, but maybe you've seen something and you're a bit like, I'm not sure how I answer that. Well, send it over to us in the studio@konnectradio.com, and we'll have a natter about it in future weeks. Thank you very much, Chris, and you take care, won't you?